that if you get the doing right, the likelihood of having a legal issue is slim.
Okay.
There you go. Because we also have a lot of businesses have great paperwork around fatigue management policies that don't follow the damn things. So
welcome to hard ground. Welcome to hard ground.
Well, Beck, welcome to the show. Welcome to Hard Ground.
I know, how exciting. Thank you for having.
Oh, we're stoked.
So it was pretty interesting when Steph was talking to you about a couple of things regarding this conversation, and we're always thinking, okay, where's somebody else we could come and help on the show? Who can give
we
us
ask?
a bit of content? And then this comes up, and we're like, oh.
I was like, this isn't a conversation we need to have. This is
I honestly, guys, the two conversations we've had in the last week have been a couple of my favourites. I'm going to say on the record, because when you called Steph and said, I heard that you sort of maybe a bit Succession-y, maybe. And I said, no, to be clear, there's some great people in Succession. I'm not one of them. I love a hard conversation. I love business strategy. I love farming people. And if anything, my jam's probably safety if you want a hard conversation. And how it unfolded from there was verged on hilarious. And so it was a really, it was a really enjoyable.
Steph was pretty much like, no thanks.
Yeah, it's a no from us. It is no from Steph. But I think that harps to this conversation, that a little bit of the right language and a little bit of confidence that we can change people's mind really quickly. So that's why I will say up front, thank you so much for having me. I love this conversation. I'm happy for it to be difficult because it is a conversation that will save lives. So I'm really excited to have it and grateful for the opportunity.
Great, Beck. No, we're pretty keen. So, Beck, you are the owner and founder of House Paddock Consulting, correct?
Correct, Josh, correct.
Okay. And Beck, tell me, how did you get into this? How did you start this whole lane?
Look, I'm conscious this conversation's to go for an hour and not a week. I grew up out at Goondiwindi and have always had an interest in agriculture, both through my family and even personally. We didn't start our life on the land. It's very much entrenched in the land now. I thought I wanted to be an agronomist. Went and studied that. So I did an ag science degree or a science degree, and then realised really quickly in my career, which started in extension, in agronomic extension, so always talking to people, facilitating the transfer of information, that not only was there a gap or an opportunity in HR and work health and safety in ag, but it really lit me up. Since then, and that was sort of 20 odd years ago that I went out on my own. So I was pretty wet behind the ears when I started House Paddock. Did I have a lot to offer? Not really. Let's keep that real. And some of the jobs we took in the early days were more to get by than with strategic purpose. And I just realised that if I kept learning and kept showing up with curiosity and authenticity, then I'd be able to offer something. And I did that. I've done lots of study along the way. So, yep, absolutely qualified to the eyeballs to have the conversation. But really what has probably grounded and founded my opportunity to talk to people is I've been on over 700 farms in 6 states. So that means I've seen things done really well and seen them done badly. I also respectfully come with a filter of my beautiful dad, who calls me Captain Safety and has got the attitude that hasn't killed anyone yet. My farm, my rules. He runs a really good operation and he does care a lot about people. But he probably and respectfully has a similar attitude to some of the conversations we might have had. So that's and I'm happy for you to dip into any of that you like. We now provide on a daily basis work health and safety, HR and business strategy advice to a range of industry groups through workshops and also individuals through coaching and consulting. And I just feel so grateful that I've done something right enough that they can be the conversations I've had. We do a lot of work as well in personal effectiveness. So helping people manage themselves, because you can't manage a business until you can do that. And that comes back to that conversation about hard conversations, communication, knowing yourself, knowing how you behave, which positions us to put systems and structure like safety in place in a business. So she's pretty multifaceted, but most things these days are very much values alignment, with purpose, on purpose, and yeah, with the privilege of choice, which I'm grateful for.
Cool.
So why safety?
Josh, why safety? I can talk from this to this from any angle you like. Let's go, with a bit of a political lens to start, or a statistical lens, and say that agriculture is a really small employer. We only employ 3% of the population, and 30% of fatalities happen on farms. So that's a really nice reason. It is the only piece of legislation that involves a hearse. But I guess from my perspective, I'm drawn to the people in ag, and it's a compliance issue, it's a paperwork issue, but it's a people issue. This issue is impacting families, it is impacting communities, and I think what I would love to communicate most strongly is we can do something about it. So I think that's where we have capacity and also a little bit of confidence, and we can make some change. And that's what we're here for. We're not interested. When you say why safety, we could choose anything to help with. There's a gap here, there's an opportunity here. So from a business perspective, it's smart, but mother of the Lord, we can, there's ground to be made. And the other thing I say, why safety, I love being down to earth. I love being practical. And if I can have these conversations with people that are relatable and they're not scaremongery, if someone at the end of a conversation with me about safety says, oh, this is, we need to sell our bloody farm, then I haven't done my job. I think that there's some tricky conversations and some angles that come through from safety that are off-putting, and that's probably why I chose it, because I know we can make it more down to earth and achievable. The other thing is the most common word used when we talk work health and safety is the word apparently. And what I mean by that is, apparently we have to, or apparently you'll lose your farm, or apparently, if you don't do this. My answer, the minute someone starts a comment with apparently, I ask who says, because quite often it's an interpretation of the legislation, which reality is there's a whole whack of grey area in it. It's not particularly black and white. There's a little bit that's black and white, and we're certainly across that. But where we can say, hey, you can interpret that as a business owner and manager to manage your risk and make sure your people are safe. So that's where I really love having conversations about safety culture and the people side of it, because I think it eats the safety paperwork.
So Beck, from a personal standpoint regarding your direction inside of this, you're very passionate about it, and you've got a lot of experience in it. Personally, what drives you? Is there something that was there something that happened, or have you sort of witnessed, or is it mainly to do with the fact that you see that the result of certain practices end up as this, and you don't want that for other people, or people or people that you affiliate with? Is that sort of where you come from personally?
No, actually, Josh, I'm one of 3 girls that motorbikes and horses, we were the only activity that we engaged in as children, and we never broke a bone. So I don't actually know how that came about. I haven't necessarily had any serious issues or trauma within my own sphere of influence, but I have through the work, and maybe I fell into it. And I guess by way of a tiny bit of background, when I was helping businesses, be more professional, and there was just this constant gap of safety, and I was like, I have to be able to help here. So I'm a generous soul, and I thought I can do this. I can help, and I can have these languages, this language. But what did hit home for me was working with people who had serious injuries and fatalities, and I can promise you that yes, absolutely. And rightly so, there will be an investigation, but it won't be the regulator that keeps you awake at night. It'll be conversations you've had with that individual's loved ones. So the real human element is probably what's drawn me to it more than personal trauma. But also, and I'm going to make a word up by saying the doability and debunking that myth that work health and safety is harder than it has to be.
Yeah, because I've got some great questions for you from people. Even one, actually, I wanted to pull up. I will need to get my phone to pull it up from someone close to our sphere. Just listing off these things and not starting with apparently, starting with I've been involved in, say, doing the chem certificate, not me personally, the person who messaged me this. And then they said XYZ, which I'll grab the message for you so I can read it. But, yeah, there's some really good questions from, I guess, the practicality side of things from farmers, and just from doing that quick reel, they came in hot and people were like, please don't name me either. Please can you just ask under the radar, which I'm absolutely happy to do. So can I ask one of those questions now?
Yeah,
or do you want to finish this off first?
One of the things like I'd really like to dive into, because this is a contentious issue. There's no two ways about it. So
100%.
many farmers, me included, look at OH&S with like mixed emotions. One is, yeah, we have to do something about this. Like, if you want to have anybody employed on your farm, you must have this at some point, because it takes a split second for something to go wrong, an accident to occur, and someone to get either hurt or killed. Plenty of close calls. There's just no, like, that's the reality of the workplace that we live in. It is, you are subject to so many variabilities associated with, old gear, short on time, short on manpower, having to cut corners, wanting to get a job done. You're pushed for time at any time. Like, if it's a storm coming, you're grabbing onto tarps. If this is happening, then you're doing that. It's like, and you're moving all the time. You're just thinking about the practicality of getting the job done. That's the nature of the field, right? That mixed with, okay, safety and regulation, because at the time, you wouldn't do that because that means you're going to die. And yet you still grabbed onto that rope, you still got flung 50 metres into the sky, and you still died. Or you did grab onto the truck and you did tip it up in the air, did hit a power line, and you died. Whatever it might be, whatever it might look like, we're subject to that at any moment. But from the day to day, and when you're sitting down at a table, it's like, what we care about is, did we make the margin this year? Did we make the money we needed this year? That's what matters, to make sure that our businesses are still viable. And so there's a collision of giving the mind that space and this space in the moment of what needs to happen at any given activity or job that needs to be done. So it's like...
Yeah, like people are saying, we're not going to do a safety run through every time we get in a piece of machinery.
And this is the thing, like this is what's really important. I think it's really great having someone like Beck on board, is because we need to debunk a lot of the myth associated with, okay, being able to put forward a plan that can affect the way that we hold the idea of OH&S. Okay, that's the first one, because right now it's a sour word in the minds of so many cockies. We just don't like it, and that it's actually doable. Like you've been saying, Beck, it's the doability of of actually being able to take action and just see that some things are put in place. And there are a lot of questions. I've got some questions as well, like, whether it's hunters or whether it's, mates on the place, or whether it's people that you just want to, like, home sitters or whatnot, the unemployed and then the employed, and the division between the two, family to not family, and that kind of thing. And there's so much, and I know that your program and that your what you do offers a lot of clarity inside of that discussion. And that's super important, and that's why, those who are listening in on this, I hope that they take this and they go, all right, that sounds good. Sounds like there's a lot of bullcrap out there, okay, associated. Where do we go to get clarity? And so it's like, okay, well, actually, we seem to have a person who knows. So there's I think that's a big value in that, but there's also a bit of a philosophy, which is something I would really like to know about yours as well, Beck. That's something we didn't really touch on, but I'd like to know the philosophy behind why the way you think as well, and how that contrasts to, say, somebody like me or some other guy out there that wants to be able to jump up and down a silo with a ladder with only 2 screws on it and whatnot. So she'll be right.
Beck's face. No, thank you.
No, there's more than 2 screws.
There's
more
three.
There's more than 2 screws.
One is rusty.
Look, there's so much in that. Look, I think there could have been 85 throwaway sort of semi-questions in that, but I'm going to give you my 2 bobs worth because I specialise in that too. Hey, Josh, I'm going to come back to your comment, and I've written down here, did you make a profit? I'd like to add on to the end of it, what would that profit be worth if it cost a life? So when we are finding ourselves in a position when we are prioritising, and there were some lines there, and I'm gonna call you on it. Things like, it's quickly, and I'll paraphrase it, but quick as you can, get the job done. That mentality, I will say, it's common. I'm going to say, though, it's less common than it used to be. I've been in the space 20 years. Anyone who blatantly says we don't do work health and safety, we think it's rubbish, is in the minority in these days, which I'm sort of glad. And I'll come back to that. I've got teenage kids that, will be employed, and I just hope that that attitude to me doesn't wash. But my point is, absolutely, we want to make a profit. There is no fun being in the red, but also there's no fun if that profit costs lives. And I believe I work with an awful lot of producers across every state, actually not Tasmania. So if there's a Tasmanian, I'd nearly give you a free package if you, blah, blah. It's my common pitch this year. I want to get myself to Tasmania. Then I can say every state, 6 states. And look, at the end of the day, they all make a profit, but what they don't do is cost lives. And it's not about, and this is back to that conversation around my philosophy around safety, and it might come as a bit as a surprise, is sloppy success is better than perfect procrastination. If we don't have anything in place, or let's go, when I say anything, you probably go default to paperwork. I'm going to say anything in terms of even processes and practices that keep people safe. Then if one of those teenage children that I spoke about came to work in your business, they disclosed that they didn't feel comfortable, and the attitude was like, oh, we've got one of these on our hands, do we? Mate, if you want to work here, this is the way we do things. And say, for example, my child was injured or killed, I do hope the law steps in. Do you know why this legislation exists? Yeah. Because we were doing such a bad job keeping people alive in a workplace, they made it illegal to kill them. Can we wind that back? And again, yes, absolutely. And back to that, the tone around safety and it being a dirty word. It's a dirty word because we think it is associated with clunky processes and paperwork, those daily pre-start checks. Do you know what? The legislation requires us to operate and maintain machinery according to manufacturer specifications. If you interpret that a daily pre-start check, that's documented, is your way, go at it. It's not my way. If I work for you as a consultant, there is no documented pre-start daily check. You want them to do a pre-start check from a maintenance perspective, don't you? So your machine keeps going because we want to make that money. Okay. And not doing that will cost you time and money down the track. And also I can, in a lot of examples, lend towards improving profitability and productivity and align it with safety. So I think, and again, I've just come back with a whole lot of stuff. Where I see the real opportunity is not in improved paperwork. It's improved conversations and systems that are on ground. Because one of my biggest concerns is also shiny black folder syndrome, where they come to, and it won't be me because I won't give it to them, but they go to a consultant, they pay an absolute small fortune, they get themselves a black folder of policies and procedures, and they put it on the shelf. They tick the box and say safety's done. Safety is not an event, team, okay? It's about actively making sure every day, on a daily basis, your team come into your workplace and are not injured or harmed. And Josh, for someone who, and don't get me wrong, I know you're on board now, and it took me an hour. Not true, it took me 15 minutes. At the end of the day, I think you're a pretty good guy. I know you're a dad. I know you're a son. I know you're a brother. And you're also a husband. I don't actually think that you'd go, oh, I don't care if they die or not.
No, of course not.
You know what I mean? So that's why, and I definitely know it's not your guys' attitude, but where we have to be careful that at the end of the day, we all want to do the right thing. And it's funny, and Steph, I hope you don't mind me sharing. Obviously, you'll crop it if you do. But we had a conversation where in the beginning you sort of said, "Oh, we don't have a lot in place." And then by the end of it, you had listed the most incredible list of things that you guys do to keep your team safe.
Yeah, I think because in my mind, I was like, in paperwork, we technically tick, 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 but in practice, of course, we're so conscious for people and we're always speaking. But I think, Josh and I were talking in the kitchen just quickly, and he was explaining, so some of the things that might be in place seem very impractical to farmers, like the hopper covers that you were talking about.
I am.
Can you just explain that to Beck? Yeah, because that is the kind of stuff that probably sends farmers round the clock. They're just like, oh, this is so impractical, I can't even function.
I think there's just levels. There's just levels of adoptabilities and
yes.
And the some of which are impractical because they're industry standards to a degree. That said, I mean, to what you're saying as well, and to this point, I think if you've got a culture inside of an organisation that doesn't care about the safety of their employees, then I'm sorry, but you're barking at the wrong tree, and you're going to cop it. If there's
And you deserve to cop it.
And
Is
you
that
deserve
fair?
to cop it.
Can we
Yeah.
get on a
Absolutely.
unity ticket there?
Absolutely.
And so then, oh my God, so and you know what? If you've got that culture, the opposite culture where, and I'm going to give you a line to plant in your subconscious with where I believe safety culture, if you've got it right, is if someone feels comfortable to down tools when they feel unsafe. And I'm going to add a kicker in here, guys. And if you knew my dad, you know how often this maybe not be lived through, is irrespective of we've got a contractor about to arrive, we're tired, we just want the job done, one more run, all of those, we're usually good until we need to be usually good all the time, because guess when those accidents happen?
Yeah.
It is the last run, under pressure, like we ran out of daylight. So if your culture is right, if your team feel comfortable, and I'm going to say, if you do have that in place, you are 70% of the way there.
But if you can't prove that, I think that's what people freak out about. Because, like, for example, I give you a classic example of what happened for us during harvest. Our team's going there. Josh is harvest master, so he says, I feel everyone's getting tired. I'm going to call a break. So he pulls his team. He gives them a break. And he's very good at being aware of that. And I think that's something that we do really well, is calling it for our guys when we feel they need it, even if they want to push on because they want to do a good job for us. But if we don't document that and then something happens legally, would we still not have a leg to stand on?
Cracking question, and thank you for the way you've worded it. So I'm going to go back a step and say that if you get the doing right, the likelihood of having a legal issue is slim.
Okay.
There you go. Because we also have a lot of businesses have great paperwork around fatigue management policies that don't follow the damn things. So my thing is, if you do, I hope you don't ever need evidence, Steph. You know, how can you prove that? Because when you are putting those systems and structure in place in your business, the likelihood, and don't get me wrong, accidents happen to good businesses.
Yeah, that's right.
Just putting that out there. But, and to your point, will you have a leg to stand on? Look, you won't have as good a leg to stand on if you had a small harvest safety manual policy, that said this is what's going to happen. If you have any concerns, come and let us know. But where you will have a leg to stand on is when they say to your team, how hard were you pushed? What is the mentality around fatigue? So that dialogue and that culture does play a part where you become, and I'm going to say watertight, but there's also, here's another myth, like, oh, we did everything except the one thing we missed, they threw the book at us. That's bullshit. That's rubbish. Okay. What they'll do. And look, if there is negligence around an element, absolutely, you might have to show cause. You might, have an improvement notice, go to prosecution, whatever that looks like. You guys are based in New South Wales. I know your podcast is nationwide, and there's a little bit of difference in the way that the legislation is implicated. But where there is intent and due diligence towards keeping people safe, I'm going to largely say, and I'm going to say this from a real place of hope too, because I know you're going to get absolutely slammed with, oh, well, that wasn't the case on our farm. Also, people put a lens over stuff when they do repeat a story of their experience with Safe Work New South Wales, whoever. But at the end of the day, they're not looking for the one thing you did wrong, and there will be an opportunity to show them what you're doing right. Let's now talk about the role of paperwork. I said, and I'm happy to say it again and again, be on record, be in writing, whatever. Culture, I believe, will position you as better than good paperwork, but good paperwork will close the loop.
Okay.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So the doing is what keeps people safe. The doing protects people. The paperwork protects your business. But let's hope, guys, no one ever sees the damn paperwork outside your business. There you go. The other thing with the paperwork is make sure it's practical. Make sure it acts as a referable tool. So Josh wants to go on a motorbike ride around Australia and Steph's now running harvest. You're the harvest queen. You want to know that it's repeatable, it's referable. You've got a new person and you told them all on the first day what it looks like, but that short harvest induction is also a really clever referable document because it's your handbook. Can I also say another thing about paperwork? There's so much paperwork out there that exists that no one actually follows. And they think, oh, if I have it in writing, and tell them and then they don't do it, that's sort of them. That's rubbish too. So two things. We quite often, and I've seen it happen, say, Steph, you've got a new team member, you've got an induction, you don't actually think it's great. You sort of know people don't follow it. And then when a new person comes into the team, you're like, oh, sorry, mate, I drew the short straw. I've got to go through this, which they hear this rubbish in their mind, okay? So you set the tone from the outset that document, like, whatever, like pick and choose what you like because everyone else does. Because that document doesn't reflect practice, but it's also not a document that you're married into and married to by way of this is how we do things. And that's where I came back to that comment about productivity and profitability. You also want people in your business to do things in a certain way, don't you? So yes, it's got a safety element, but to know that everyone does things in a certain way, I think, and I talk beyond safety in my business and help. That stuff's good. The other thing we do then is they leave and they go, oh, it says here that we've got to wear a helmet, or it says that we only work 12 hours, or it says that we've got to wear a seatbelt, but I'm looking around here and this is all a bit weird. So you're actually setting people up for an element of confusion before they start.
Yes,
So
if I was an employee and then no one was wearing a seatbelt, but I was told I had to wear a seatbelt, I would, like, if I was a guy, I would feel a little bit like, people are going to think I'm lame if I wear a seatbelt.
And like, the other thing is,
because it's opposite to what they're seeing. I mean,
people don't do what you expect; they do what you accept. And so this is and putting paperwork in place that you have no intention to follow up or follow through. I'm telling you now, team, it's going to cause you more dramas than it's worth. Okay, so just because, and that for me is where the shiny black folder syndrome comes in. You tick the box that you've got a safety policy. You know, I've had businesses that said, yeah, it's sort of on an intranet thing, but I don't really have a login. I'm like, wow. So that's some of the stuff that, and don't get me wrong, if you want your business to be protected, you do need to have some of this stuff documented.
Yeah,
evidence. Yep. But also I go back to referability, repeatability, transferability, all of those things in your business to make your business better and make sure people don't die or be injured from the outset. And then the evidence piece is the bolt-on bonus.
Yes. Can I do you want to ask something?
No, I just wanted to say, ask you, Beck, where do you see the most like resistance inside of this space? Where does it come from?
On our older generation, Josh, but let's face it, guys. I might go to Warren and run a workshop, or was in Townsville last week. Like I only get the privilege of hanging out with the people who have come to the point where they know they have to do something. So there's a portion of the community that I don't get to see, and that, you know what, that's actually okay. And I'm very happy to give someone a very convincing yarn about and overcome those barriers. It is definitely the older generation, but I said it before and I'll say it again. I think the resistance is less and less. The tolerance is also less and less. If you would like to be an employer of choice, which gives you the ability to attract and retain the cream of the crop, you actually need to have this stuff going on, because there's a lot of good operators that'll come and go, this is rubbish, this is a cowboy show, I'm out of here. Okay. So the alternative to an employer of choice is an employer of last resort. And so expectation of compliance and running a professional business is a really low base. Okay. So where do I see resistance? I don't have the privilege of seeing a lot of people who are resistant, and I don't go looking for them, Josh, and they're also harder to find than they were, and I'll say just 5 years ago. 20 years ago, they were everywhere. But 5 years ago, they were sort of, becoming in the minority. We don't often see these days people that are blatantly a little bit of, I'll tell you where the shift has come to. Apparently I can pay you to make my work health and safety go away. I love those ones. And that's where I do talk, because all we need to do is put a human spin on this piece, remove the compliance burden. There is a compliance burden. Okay, but I'll say it again, the only reason that there's legislation is because and I'm grateful that they've made it illegal to kill people at work. I'm grateful for that. I'm grateful for the legislation in that framework.
Yeah, I think that's important. Like, I mean, there's got to be. I mean, legally, you have to be able to comply to the point where you're not endangering lives. You can't have that.
Absolutely.
You can't have that. You can't expect somebody to partake and participate in something that is dangerous of any kind. Like, if someone's going to crawl under a piece of machinery or something like that, and the right safety procedures are not in place, then that ain't on. Even if they want to dive underneath it, because you've got some reckless guys out there too. And they're going to do it. And you're like, well, no, hang on a second, get the hell out of there. Where are your chocks? Or where's the thing here? Or whatever that might be. The reason I ask where do you see the resistance and the reason for that question, Beck, is because yes, it's still resistant. There's still a lot of resistance, and I know because we are part of this industry, and it's like, okay, where do we need to go to sort of loosen up the conversation and take it away from the bureaucratic burden that basically it's aligned with in a lot of people's minds, and release that from that, because if we can't have people listen to this conversation and go, oh, so it's not that bad, it's not that hard. We might need to actually do that. And like you said, hey, you align this with some SOPs and some other other systems that you can put in place. It professionalizes your business and makes it more, I suppose, clockwork. That said, yes, you are always going to have people that don't really go in for clockwork. They just don't, because this is the thing. This is a way of thinking, and it's part of. What I also know to be true is that a lot of people live out here and do this job because they love the freedom that it entails and entails. Sorry, and there is I've got room to swing a cat out here. Not everybody's looking over my shoulder. I don't have to comply to everybody else because I'm my own man or woman or whatever, and I can do that freely, and that's okay. But that can't be the case if you've got somebody else helping you out. You can't expect them to come under the same way. What would you say to that, Beck?
Yeah, I love it. And you know what? I love the freedom of what agriculture offers. But I'm going to ask you, it's a bit like all we want to be is profitable. What's the cost? So if that freedom costs a life, I'd rather be cooped up. So again, I also, Josh, think
that's interesting.
You can have both. Do you know? So and I think back to probably the previous part of that, your comment is we do need to have these conversations. And I'll tell you, because of the resistance and because we aren't getting the message through in an advisory capacity, it goes from being a carrot to a stick. They are making it more legislated and making the compliance because our statistics are not going in the same direction as the rest of the industries. Yes, absolutely, they're coming off slightly, but we are still so overrepresented in this space. If you think about it, we in agriculture spend a lot of time taking the mickey out of the investment mining has made, right, in safety.
Yeah.
If there is a fatality in mining, it comes across the screen as breaking news. We kill someone in agriculture every 6 days and it doesn't make the local rag.
Mm-hmm. Whoa.
Okay.
And you know what? I can double back to that by saying that just the other day there was the 20-year reunion. You know those two beautiful fellows that came out of the mine after however many days down in Victoria?
Yeah.
Yep. Not Beechworth, but wherever.
Yeah.
Like they're still talking about it.
Yeah.
You know, one fellow that lost his life that day. I lived at Goondiwindi. A few months ago, 200 kilometres, a few years ago now, 200 kilometres from here, there were two beautiful, beautiful, beautiful operators killed in 1 week. That community was on its knees. So we just, that's why I said right at the beginning, I'm grateful to be able to have this conversation, but also, and I know, Steph, without jumping the gun, because I read the comment, there's a gorgeous fellow that wants to help in this space. There's plenty of room. But also we have to be very careful at the angle we take. And you need to speak fluent farmer. You're also, and I think this is the other, if anyone listens to this, they'll probably read the title and give it a miss anyway, but here we are. If anyone listens to this and they leave with the confidence not to get it right, but to make a start, we've had a win, guys. Yeah. You're not going to get it right ever. Yeah. Okay. But if we just make a start and do 2 or 3 things, and Steph, you and I talked about it, like if we wrote a list of, the 30 things we've got to do, and we were doing one thing a week, a 10, 15-minute job, in 12 months, you're nearly where you need to be, okay? But in the meantime, if you do have an issue and you've done half the list, you're 50% of the way there. Yeah. I'd rather be 50% than 0. The other thing I'm going to say with that is people say, oh, yeah, I've sort of printed out a bit of an induction, but I'm really nervous that it's not right.
Something is better than nothing.
Oh, yes. Yeah. And then, we had one thing wrong, which don't get me wrong. Usually it's like, we said we had a first aid kit and we didn't. Oh, well, make sure the document reflects your business. 2 choices, change the document, change your business. Don't ever have any documentation and paperwork in your business that is at odds with your operation.
But can I just ask Beck too, because I will say, like, my dad has a very successful business and he employs maybe 20 or 30 people. I can't remember what it is now. And they're in the garage door industry and they are bent over backwards constantly in their safety procedures. And still he could lose everything. And I think my question is that the same in farming, or is there leniences because of the industry that we're in that make it slightly different? Because when I hear that, like he says to me quite often, I don't know why I'm in business, because the risk I am taking every day could shut me down in a heartbeat, and I jump through every hoop, I go through every piece of red tape, I dot every I cross every T. He has someone fully employed all the time to make sure these safety procedures are in place, and yet still he could be taken to the cleaners. And that is what people kind of say to me when this conversation comes up, that the risk of that happening, even when you have all of this in place, terrifies people. And my dad is he's a
good operator, Steph.
A really good operator. Like, we joke, don't we, on the farm? Like, we joke that he's our safety Steve, because he's very conscious.
Okay. I am interested to find somewhere. So we talk here, and I'm not a lawyer. I'm happy to put that on the record too. But work health and safety legislation is what we call precedence-based legislation, which is, it might be Borowski versus Fing, and they'll have a look at that case. And then if you're the next in line, it's either better or worse than that. I'm interested to see evidence and to use your language, jumping through hoops, having everything in place and still lost everything.
Yeah, well, I can't exactly remember the incident, like the specifics of the incident, but basically one of his co-workers in another business had a guy driving to work, to work for him, had a car accident, and whether he died or whether he was seriously injured. And even though the owner of the business had done all the normal things, he's still losing the lot because he cannot afford to pay out whatever he has to pay out. And it was kind of like the $40 million incident you were telling me about the other day in Tasmania with the girl with the motorbike. It's a similar scenario. And this guy was talking to my dad, and he was devastated because he was like, I thought I did everything. I had everything in place. But still, because he was on the clock for him, work health and safety or the family, whichever it is, they're still taking him to the cleaners. And you said, two different scenarios.
Where do we go with this? I'm going to give you.
Well, you could explain that scenario you told me. I think that's
sure. Because when can I give people some confidence that I feel it's unlikely, and that's the language I'm going to use, is unlikely. I'll never say definite. I'll never say if you work with me, you'll be compliant, you'll be in a better position than you were. But I will say, if you are doing your darndest to show intent, it could, and I think that's where, and I hesitate to talk about any businesses or cases I don't know anything about, but sometimes we see where, we had it all in place, and then you find out they didn't follow a thing.
Yeah, okay.
Well, so I'm, and I think also, Steph, and back to your comment, Josh, about how we debunk is we stop telling stories we don't know. And I'm not saying that's your story, Steph, but there's so much I hear, and they've taken a little bit of the hearsay, they've taken a tiny bit of the story, bolted together their if you will, confirmation bias that work health and safety is ugly, and they run with it. I love when, and he was sued. And I'm like, what was the outcome? And like, I don't know. We'll stop talking about, like, do you know what I mean? So, and I'm not saying, and also we get, if we do even hear it from the defendant, sometimes they did drop out the fact that they'd 2 days before stood people down because they complained about not having the right PPE. If
there's always more to the story. But definitely, okay, not including that story about my dad's friend that he, has a similar job to him, but definitely from his own mouth, he's so compliant with WHS, but he absolutely lives in fear of losing everything. Because what his boys do is so dangerous. Doors can fall off a wall on them. They can fall off from like 5 meter heights. Got all the exactly the same as our industry.
It's an industry. The thing is, like, this is the thing, but
it's like there's also got to be a willing to take a risk type thing.
And here's what I would say, and sort of point back to something that you mentioned before, which was I'd rather be cooped up than lose a life. And there's a philosophy that directly clashes with the philosophy of what we do every day. It's sort of like, okay, we fight for the freedoms to be able to build and grow and create a business that thrives, okay, for the benefit and betterment of others. I know as a father that, yes, I will put my life on the line, and I think, you know, we're gonna have an interview with one of our Australian soldiers, you know, who's been over in Afghanistan and done terms over there. You know, they're out there and they're putting themselves on the front line for the sake of freedom. So it's like there is a value of freedom that extends beyond safety and that sort of thing. And it's sort of like, okay, what we do as we do, like while we're out here, you know, swinging the cat, so to speak. And yes, there are risks associated, is because, you know, it is a stewardship of the land. And what we find very difficult in some of the language even is, okay, whoever made these things up, or some of these stringent you know, loops that we have to like jump through, they're not practical, or they don't make sense to our minds. Like,
Or
well,
the
how am I
person who
supposed
makes
to?
it up is not part of the
Not
industry.
part of the industry, or hasn't had boots on the ground, or they're applying a philosophy that doesn't gel with the why we do this in a way, or within that sort of a sphere. So
Well, it's even like the way you take our kids, you know, like there's a certain things that we let our kids do because we live on the land. And a lot of parents would, you know, a lot of farming parents would get this. You know, our kids ride motorbikes, they ride horses, they ride in the back of utes. They do these things
Don't
that are.
cancel that.
Okay, do we edit that out? but you know, do we? And I sometimes say to Josh, like, we can't let them do that. That's too dangerous. And Josh is like, yes, but we also have to let them live as well. Like, we let them do dangerous things safely, but they still a risk. They can still come off their horse and break their neck, even if they've got a helmet on, even if they've got a chest plate on when they're riding their motorbikes. But there's a balance there, and we have to, we choose to live in a more, I don't know, like active reality
a
around
less
that.
controlled environment, because we believe there's such an element.
thrill for them
No,
and-
it's not a thrill. It's a virtue. It's sort of like if you put kids in,
Character
you know,
building.
like all the trampolines these days, they've got the nets around them. Okay,
We've never had the
and,
net.
when you put kids in there with the net, okay, and then you take the net away, they fall off. They didn't develop that means to be able to judge their distances, their jump, whatever, and their consequence is now thus, okay? Oh, well, they go over and they break a leg, or whatever it might be. You know, or climb a tree, for instance. Okay, a tree is not a controlled environment. It's an uncontrolled environment. A branch might break. The height might be thus, or whatever. And I don't know. I mean, I used to climb trees as a kid, and now I look at my own kids and they're climbing a tree. I'm like, shit, that's scary. Like, get down right now. You're not going any higher. Don't you dare. But I still can appreciate the virtue that sits inside of, or the benefit that sits inside of exploring boundaries, limits, and that sort of an area. And that's something that I think we see inside of, you know, those brought up on the land or brought up inside of these spaces. They have that, and then when they see scenarios or situations, they can move into that. Whereas where we have overly controlled environments, people are at a loss how to actually act and behave.
Well, they don't have to problem solve in the same
Well,
way.
and it's an instantaneous problem solving side of things. And I know this is a slightly different conversation, because when we're talking about risk and we're talking about the way that we think and compute risk inside of the different ways of seeing the world. But it's an important one, because I think that as a community, or as a certain industry type, it's not just an industry, it's a life. And it's like, you know, the mines, that's an industry, it's not a life. We live and work and live and die on these land that we pass down from generation to generation. So that life is something that we love, and we live it, and in different degrees like that. And I hope that makes sense. But, you know, that's what I see, that's what I've experienced. So, you know, does that sort of play into, like, when you sort of hear that, Beck? What do you sort of take from that kind of thing?
Oh, sure. And I think we're talking about having freedom and living your life. You're right. It's a really unique environment. Our workplace is double as our home. They're also cool to visit. We get lots of people that want to come and be a part of what we do. But you also, while you're talking about risk and whatever, you've also talked about helmets and chest plates for your children. So what my take on that would be, absolutely. But you're managing that risk and teaching them that, yes, absolutely, this is dangerous. This chest plate will help you cause, and actually stay away from that electric fence because that won't be fun, and the barb's not going to be fun either. So I'm going to challenge the fact that absolutely what you do, and I love that. And that's my life. That's my children's life as well.
Yeah, you said, yeah.
But it's more that you're also doing it with some boundaries and also with some risk management tactics in place. Like it's and yeah. So I'll leave it at that because I agree with you on it. I don't. And this isn't about taking that away.
No.
This is about making sure unnecessary risk. And let's pick this conversation up and plant it back in a workplace, because our beautiful babies, I was horrified to hear of a story, and when I say hear of a story, I hate that line too, to read an article that from a reputed source where a child was killed on a quad bike, a little child. It's quite well known that quad bikes of 16 plus, blah, 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 all the things you should do, stick it all over it. Anyway, and this is back to our comment before about losing everything, Steph. Work health and safety in the jurisdiction came back and said it's not a work-related incident. And then it can pick up out of there. So it was no further investigation, but they can pick up out of there and say, for example, it's a team member. You can have a civil case where a family prosecutes for damages. In this case, it was actually the police that prosecuted for child negligence because this little 3-year-old shouldn't have been put in that environment.
Okay.
But can I say this as well? And it might actually close this conversation. I get it. But what we have done through the beautiful history and legacy and tradition that is agriculture is normalised some really wild stuff. And back to, this is a random sort of comment to throw in the mix. And Josh, it was in line with a comment from you earlier. Who are most represented in our infertility statistics are actually the senior members of our farming family. Because what happens is, and this for me is a real institution around the fact that we care, is the most senior members of the team assume the dangerous jobs. Hey, no one's climbing that silo with the 3 screws except me. No one's driving that old piece of machinery. I'll fix that bunker, whatever it is. But also then that comes with a level of casualness and comfort that may not be matched with the agility that you once had. So my question is, and see, this will fall how it will fall, is I ask you, Steph, are you comfortable with that everything that is dangerous in your operation, Josh does? So the likelihood of him dying is highest. But also my other thing, I look at my beautiful dad. He's his way of managing safety is, I'll leave that, I'll do it, leave that, I'll do it, leave that, I'll do it, leave that, I'll do it. I look at my teenage boys, and I've got teenage nieces that live on one of our farms and spend every day with my beautiful dad. They all think he hung the moon. So what I mean by that is, and same with our team members, they've made it when they can do what Barry does. Okay, so we are setting ourselves up, and even your children, that they've made it when they can do dangerous stuff, rather than going, hey guys, we're going to fix this because we don't want anyone to be injured by it. So look, and we can go around and around and around in circles about taking away flexibility and agility and freedom and allowing risk and allowing our curiosity and all of the things until someone's killed, or until your child loses a foot on a motorbike because, say, joggers on. Look, and
to answer your question too, Beck, like, there is a part of me that in the back of my mind, I think, I hope that man comes back to me today. Definitely. But I also know that there is just risk in everything in life, and perhaps even it's more dangerous for people who are traveling, at a cross speed of 200 kilometers to each other on a highway on their way to work, on their commute every day, because they have to commute, whatever. So yes, there is part of me but I've also accepted I married a farmer, and that comes with a level of risk, same as a woman who marries into the, defence forces. She knows her husband may not come back, which you might think is odd that I have mentally accepted that in my mind, but I don't
think it's odd, Steph.
There's no guarantees in life, I guess.
That we have the most incredible industry.
But there's I just mean there's no guarantees in life. Yeah. I can't control everything. And I think that's probably where this conversation can go around in circles, is that
I think it's good to touch on it because of what it is.
Yeah, it's good.
The conversation at hand, because what it does is that it exposes, because there's a lot of people that are wanting to hear this edge of the conversation as well. Like we want to get down to the bit of the nitty gritty of it, the undercurrent of it a bit, because yes, there is a lot to be educated on associated with this work health and safety. One, I completely agree that we need to be doing stuff better on farms.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I think that there are just some things there, and especially when it comes to the cultures associated with safety, if you're not looking out for your team members, if you're not doing that, if you're being negligent, yada, 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 well, guess what? It's coming for you.
Yeah, and it should be.
And it should be. It's your bloody fault. You've got to take responsibility for that. That said, farmers shouldn't be scared to death to have anybody else. This is why family farms are family farms, because there is a trust network associated with hands on deck. We don't want other people on because, if someone gets hurt or whatever, because you have to throw them at this or throw them at that, then, oh my gosh, we're going to lose everything again. So we want to be able to scale the operations. We also want to be able to do it without freaking out. And we also want to be able to do it whilst living in a home that we've developed over the generations.
It's actually one of the questions that I have for you, Beck. Can I read that to you? It just goes on what you're saying there. Just bring it up for me, Joshy.
I'll bring it up.
It is. Okay, so basically it's along the lines of where you have employees living in the property with you. You provide a whole range of things. They basically integrate with your life and your family, your business. It's hard to say no to them using something like the buggy, for example. This is the example that this lady has used on the weekend when they want to go for a drive or explore or other personal reasons. Where is the line? They want to know, where is the line if they had an accident at that time when they were using it for recreation outside of work hours, but they still live on your property and they're still employed by you?
Great question. And then quite a simple answer. Were they doing a work-related activity at the time of the accident?
No.
And it's an interesting one. And so the answer is it would not be investigated in a work-related capacity. But they were taking the buggy, and I can find evidence of this case. They were taking the buggy down to have a fish or going for a lap, and then they doubled back and saw that a trough had been leaking, and they stopped. We've engaged. So we don't have set farming at work in set hours in farming. So were they doing a work-related activity is the first question. And then, and if not, it's pretty simple. It's no further. It's no different to, we've got horses on farm for work, and then they camp draft on the weekend. So sometimes in the afternoon they might get some cattle up and practice, run some steers or whatever, but not a work-related activity. Unless you said, actually, that's great. Those weaners need handling. I'd love you to, So there's the worst thing with all of this, and I'm happy to answer as many specific questions as you want, but to give a more general answer in terms of this response is there's a lot of grey area, and it will be a case-by-case investigation. You can't pull, and to your comment, Steph, or question around shooters, let's add, we've got a motorbike track, we've got a really beautiful spot on the river, we sometimes have some campers. So I'm going to answer this in a few parts. So basically, work health and safety covers anyone who contributes to the profitability and productivity of your operation. So that means family, staff, contractors, slave labour, child labour. Let's also add in the mix a work experienced student who's actually quite useful. Blaze aid coming to fix some fences, okay? So the type of remuneration is actually not there. So that is actually disregarded. What if there is an exchange? So come and give me a hand for the day, then I'll come and give you a hand. Come and give me a hand for the day and I'll give you a carton of beer. Come and give me a hand for the day and then we'll take you for a water ski. We've had an exchange, okay? So just wanted to put that in there. But also, are they adding to the productivity and profitability of your farm? If, for example, I come to visit you during harvest and I don't know, we decide to go down
header or
and go for a drive.
Yeah.
And while I'm down there, I'm actually a pain in the neck. I'm not being productive whatsoever. I jump on the header, go for a lap, get out, fall over. I am a visitor. I'm an other in that workplace. Let's provide another example. I come to your farm, you say, hey, dude, glad you're useful because our header driver didn't turn up. You're on. I'm an employee. And the only thing I was getting in exchange is a yummy meal at the end of the day and a bottle of red wine.
That's so important.
But
that's a very good clarification.
That's so bloody valuable inside of these kind of discussions.
But also, let's go back. And so then the shooters a bit of a tricky one. And after our conversation, Steph, I went looking for some case-based legislation because we need to look at the precedents. I can't locate anywhere. I'm going to be hazardous to say never. But I can't locate where producer has been found liable if there has been an incident with a recreational and or, because it's tricky, the removal of pigs from your crop.
Yes.
Is that not a, do you know?
Yeah.
Like, are they a contractor?
They could claim
but
that, couldn't they?
Well,
Yeah.
and look, at the end of the day, I love, and I've produced it for clients in the past, is a bit of a one-pager. Hey guys, to come on farm, this is the information we need to provide to you to keep us safe. I love registered guns. I love an affiliation with like a recreational shooter or professional shooters association, which demonstrates that they're running a professional business as well.
Like
it might be a farm map.
insurance too, like that they have
Yeah,
insurance.
absolutely.
Yeah, cool.
The thing is with insurance is if you if they don't have it, yours will pay. It's the responsibility starts where the stops where the negligence stops, if that makes sense. If they've got their own systems in place, they'll be covered. And it's funny with any contractors, and let's push the shooters to the side because there's, again, grey area, guys. It's thick on the ground in this space. Say say a harvest contractor comes on farm and you're like, wow, this guy's a wild operator, that's a death trap, blah, blah, blah.
Yep.
Sometimes, not as much anymore, but still a common myth is that, yeah, but they're a contractor, they're not our responsibility.
Okay.
Bow, bow.
Okay.
It is a shared responsibility, and it's your responsibility to engage a professional contractor that doesn't pose harm to their staff. And to that end, people will say, oh, so did you expect your contractor to induct their team? I'm like, absolutely I would. Yeah. And the only reason dodgy contractors exist is because we continue to employ them. If they don't have, and I can say this with the highest level of confidence, if they don't have the right systems in place and you engage them and someone is killed on their watch, you will pay if they don't have, because there's nowhere to stop the responsibility. So you absolutely should have said, hey, you've got your machinery's up to date, your team's up to date, you've got the, fire extinguishers, blah, 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 all the things to come and operate safely in our business. We will provide you safe access, and then it's happy days.
What about something like a tyre service or something like that come out to mend a tyre or whatever? What about them? Because a lot of the time they're mobile services. Like you got flat tyre over on such and such a paddock. It's a 150,000 acre operation, and they just come on and do the job. What's the go there?
Yeah. So, and we're getting right into some weeds here and some specifics, but I love talking them as much as I love talking strategy. I encourage our clients to have, on an annual basis, a touch base with everyone. Like you'll know your top 10 contractors. And it's not, at this point, I'm not saying you've got to meet him under the grid and, check him in and no. But what I would do is make sure on an annual basis, I would send some information to your contractors. It can be quite generic. It can be, hey guys, looking forward to working with you again on an as needed basis this year, just to confirm this is our gazetted address. They've probably been given a mud map. This is our gazetted address for emergency preparedness. We've got no service. We're always on channel 14. Actually, enables on 28 if you can't get us. If you're using any of our equipment, please check in. Do you know what I mean?
Well,
give them some basic information, which you probably do.
It's funny. It's funny that you say this, because as you guys were talking about this, I was thinking, yeah, but every other industry has to do it. Like every time my brother goes onto any work site, he has to be inducted. He has to go through the safety checks. He has to do X, Y, Z. You ask anyone going into the mines, they have to do like a day's worth of inductions before they're allowed in there. So
and I'm saying to send them an annual email.
Yeah, and it's interesting that in the farming industry, we don't have to, in inverted commas, technically do any of that.
Yes, you do.
Oh, no. Sorry,
like you.
We
no,
do.
Sorry,
we just don't.
That's right.
Okay, but we do. But I would say 99% of operators are not inducting everyone that walks on their land. Like properly inducting.
No way.
No way.
No, you said 99% weren't. I'm going to say 70% aren't. The corporates are doing it very well, and even the savvier family farming businesses that are. But again, it's not everyone who. If I ring and say the tyre guy rings, say, hey mate, we've got a dozer out the back tyre. I'll just flick your farm map and a couple of basics which you've saved on your phone. You've inducted him.
Yes. Okay. This is also a great distinction.
Yes. So it's not. I'm not talking
we need
one
to
full day down tools.
Yeah, we're not talking. We have to be the same as the mining or the big corporate operations. You're just saying it could be a very simple little thing, and you have covered yourself, or at least shown that you have made an effort, which is a lot more than we don't care attitude. about it.
And covered yourself. We won't say that. You'll be in a better position than if you didn't. And that little follow-up text, hey, just confirming we're in Channel 14. Let us know when you arrive so we can keep an eye out for you. Make sure you close all gates. It's stuff that you want to tell them anyway. And by flicking it through, again, we're butt covering by having it documented. Are you going to be 100% watertight with a text message induction? Maybe not. You're going to be better positioned than if you weren't, if you did nothing.
Yeah.
And that's where I think that we can break this stuff down. And again, if we go back to that comment that we don't have to do what the mines do, but we're also not going to get the results the mines get, which we're talking about fatalities every 6 days. They're talking about a few a year. So choose your hard. We can keep pushing back on this and saying we don't have to. And back, there was a question earlier, do we have leniency? Yeah, they said we seem to find it. Or we get a document that, or, maybe from our industry organisation, the New South Wales Farmers, NFFs of the world, whoever it is, GRDC, with a safety update, and we choose not to read it. And then we say we don't have the information.
Yeah,
I just want to make one more comment, is that people, my other favourite line is, oh my God, you can't keep up with it. All it does is change. That's actually not true either.
Well,
our knowledge and understanding changes.
Yeah.
Our awareness changes.
My sister said to me yesterday when I was talking to her about this, she's like, we have someone fully employed all the time to deal with this. And that's where I think farms freak out, because they don't have time to all the, we wouldn't think to put someone on as their full-time job to be our HR WHS person.
And to add to that, if you're looking at a mining situation, if a mine goes down, how many millions of dollars per hour is going out the wall? Whereas you put a farm down for a bit, okay. Like you're talking family farms, and the resources at the fingertips are completely different. And that's why, like, if you talked about corporate farms as well, corporate farms, you've got a backer that's going to have to do it, and if they don't do it, they're going to get nailed. Okay, family farms, the expectations may be the same in some people's minds, but the reality is that we're just sort of like trying to keep our heads above water full stop at the moment.
Can I say to that, and this is some good news, because we've got to be careful, team. Our aim here is to convince people that they can do it, not they can't. Complexity of your business.
Like to that, like with that, that's a good point. Okay, because that's juggling around all the time. The aim here is to have a hard conversation associated with this particular situation. That's our main point, because our viewers, our people, we want them to know that we're pushing back on whatever it is from the point of view of the farm, of the individual. The thing is, what I would say is, there is good news, which is what you've spoken about, and I know, and I'm ready to.
I've already started things. Like, I'm doing it. We're in.
Like we're in. Okay, because I'm sold on the fact that actually, if we can actually look at doing this, and we can be in a much better position than if we weren't, that is a grace. That is a grace I'm prepared to invest in.
I love it.
Sorry, go on.
And sorry, it wasn't about, the whole keep people in the dark. It's more about those couple of comments, Steph, about putting someone on full time. We've got one program we've run across New South Wales. We've had 700 farming women, and look, I joke and say I talk to a lot of daughter-in-laws. They are now suitably capable, after a couple of days of workshops, to 100% look after that system. And look, there's a couple of updates I've subscribed to, but again, you will never get it right. And I think that's probably something I'd love the listeners to really plant and take hold of. But that also, that fear of starting is where we often see a real barrier. And so starting with something, and Steph, even that beautiful energy you just had around, I've already started. Girlfriend, you keep going. You're going to be, when I say finish.
I told my brother-in-law I'm going to be the new safety officer. Like, I got this. I'm going to do Beck's course. I'm going to smash it. I'm going to take care of it. Because also it's something that...
You can. You have the capability. And I know you're a smart operator. And there's people saying, but look at her. She's incredibly smart. If you can do a BAS, you can keep on top of this. It just comes back to, firstly, the will to make change. Don't look at me, Steph. I
was like, you said that to the wrong lady. I hate numbers. That is not what I do.
If you can keep on top top of 3 toddlers' schedules in a couple of
Okay,
different
great.
schools, you can
Better
do this.
example.
Yes,
Great.
But
I was like,
also-
she just said that to the wrong girl.
yeah, no, I'm just saying, I had someone turn up to a workshop, a business strategy workshop, and said they were here for the figures. I was like, is there an accountant in the room by any chance? Because I'm stuffed. But at the end of the day, there are some great resources out there. And I'll say, look, I'm the worst box of steak knives operator in the world. We run a great program, but also hit Google. We have done some incredible work with AI and being able to generate really incredible documents in-house. Get someone to get on ChatGPT, blah, all the things. So, but as well as the will, there's also another thing, and that is the resource. Steph, when we had a quick chat about some things you can put in place, how much money have you spent on it so far?
None.
None. Good. The second thing is, but our most precious resource, which doubles back to and ties
time.
together all of our conversation, is time. And I always say to people, hey, if you're looking for that perfect week in October that you think's available, you're going to do it then. It's never going to happen. So if you go, righto, Monday morning, I usually pay some bills. I'm going to choose one thing off my list. One thing. And because finding these weeks we'll find a week to get a crop in the ground or, process cattle to get ready for sale. Finding a week to invest in this, you do have to put a bit of a sprint in your marathon on occasion. Okay. And back to some practical places to start. I do say if anyone employs people outside their family and they don't have a documented induction, do it the minute you hang up this podcast, please. Because while that's not as common as it used to be. I'm saying not many years ago, 2 or 3, 5 years ago, that it wasn't as common. Now it's quite well communicated that that's a requirement, and there's also quite a low tolerance of not having anything in place. So that's tip number 1. If you don't employ people outside your family, but even if you do, your next step is around emergency preparedness. Steph, we were on the phone talking, and while we were chatting, you downloaded a template, and it would have taken you 15 minutes to put in place, print the damn thing out, put it on the fridge, put it in the workshop, put it anywhere.
Yeah.
And then we do need some evidence of training. They're the 3 major components of a work health and safety management system. And I could go into them in as much detail as you want me to, because at the end of the day, I want people to leave with the confidence to have a conversation, the confidence that they can make a start, but also where to go. So, and when I say where to go, that's where I would start. And then also consultation, which is having genuine and ongoing conversations in your business. And Steph, can you remember the question I said, go to your team and ask them?
Oh, yeah. Where do they feel unsafe?
I said, what's the 5 things in this business that give you an ick, make you feel unsafe? And you know what? Start their team. Is that not the best style of an audit? Do you know? So, and it's not about...
That's actually a great question to ask.
Yeah, it's not about shiny paint syndrome and getting it all done. And the enormity of the task is the biggest barrier.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
yeah, I feel
down.
Yeah, I feel very inspired too by your style of the way you approach this for people, because you are, boots on the ground. That is where you've come from. You do get it, and I appreciate the style in which your 2 courses that you've got coming up, are going to run. And I do want you to tell the listeners about that, because I actually just think they're going to be fantastic. So they just go for it, get it started. But just before that, I want to ask you a couple of questions from the listeners. Can I do that? Because I know we're... Can I
interject?
Yeah,
Sorry.
Well, no. You go.
Well, and we'll end up cutting this bit out, but I want to make the comment, and please keep this in, is often when we do start the journey of safety, we hit a roadblock. It's like, I'm not wearing a helmet. I don't care what any which way you look at, I'm not wearing a helmet, or I'm not wearing a seatbelt, or be stuffed if I'm doing that. And then as a result, we have a bit of a hard shutdown, a standoff, and we throw the baby out with the bathwater. Okay? I liken this whole show to a game of poker, and we don't have to be a gambler to understand this. Every single little tiny thing you do collects a poker chip that if you ever need it, and I hope you don't, you can be in that game. And so if, for example, you do have a great culture, every time you have these conversations, it might be, hey, guys, wash out at the bottom of that paddock from the storm last night, or tree down, or, hey, I'm headed to town. Does anyone need any equipment? All of that. Poker chip, poker chip, poker chip. And Steph, when we were chatting, I was like, man, I could rake so many poker chips out of your business to put you in this game. Just watch how you're speaking about how you actually do it.
Yes.
Also, if there is something you cannot, and I say in inverted commas, get over the line, like, oh, there's no point doing safety, no one's wearing a helmet. Forget about that one thing. Put it to the side and work on the things that you can get over the line. Because what ends up happening is that last 2% of heading us towards perfection, we actually, and it could be that you're the one that I'm not bloody doing that. And so, but don't let that be the barrier for the things that really will put both some protection for your business and also the people in place. That's probably my other greatest tip. And that comes from working with businesses that, started with their arms hard folded, and also going into my beautiful family business where my dad doesn't wear a quad bike helmet and does my head in. But I could fight with him about that and have a standoff, and potentially and respectfully, he would lose interest, and also every time I open my mouth, he would shut me down.
Yeah.
But no, just don't mention it. But there's so many other cool things that I can say, hey, Dad, this could be cool. Do you reckon we should blah, blah, blah? I was like, oh, that's a great idea, Bob. And I go about and do it. So be careful of the things you're never going to do. Be careful of the things you're never getting over the line, but don't let it stop you getting progress in other areas of safety. And that game of poker, if the one chip you didn't get, like I know I'm working in the business, had a fatality, quad bike, no helmet, blah, blah, but we've got a lot of other poker chips that we've collected across the course of culture and paperwork and blah, 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 that is helping our course. And I can say that with a level of confidence.
Yeah, beautiful.
Yeah, I think that's a really good message, actually.
Yes.
Pick your battles.
Pick your battles.
Yeah, like if I come into a business and you go, oh, these are 10 ideal things, and they throw 2 out, oh, well, we're 80% of the way there.
Yeah.
So that, and I think that's where this confidence piece goes, oh, she reckons if we make a start, I promise I will, how I was going to say I'd go to jail with you. But look, if you're making a really, 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 really good effort, and I'm talking really good, guys, we're talking follow through. We're not talking shiny black paint syndrome, because this is what happens. Oh, he had everything in place. It's like, yeah, none of it was followed.
Yeah.
And he facilitated. He got a folder of stuff to protect his business. At no point did he ever try to protect his people.
Yeah.
So, and I think if that's the messaging that Beck Fing is known for, I've had a win. And that's all I can say. And it does give me a little, goosebumps on my cheeks, sort of all over, because that's what this is about. We are trying to save lives. And
yes. Yeah.
But also, again, keep our freedom, keep our choice, our privilege of choice, keep that flexibility and agility. There is a lot of ways in this space. I talk about grey areas. There's a lot of ways to skin a cat.
Yeah.
Come at me. If you say I'm definitely not doing that, okay, we'll work around it. We'll work around it. We'll do something else.
Yeah.
So it's the lack of hard and fast here should excite people, because anyway.
Great, there's options.
I think that's great. Like just with regard to that, it's not trying to take away liberties.
Absolutely, it's very important that people understand
that's
that.
Right.
Yeah,
because that's where a lot of this gets confused. It's not trying to take away liberties. It's trying to empower the businesses and business owners to be able to expand and to be able to scale within the bounds, so that if something does happen, you're not going to sink the ship.
Yeah, and to keep people safe.
No. Oh, and we'll add in there, Josh, too, to grow and have confidence along the way that people's safety is in the mix.
Yes, yeah.
And I think this is the other thing is, I always say to people, the whole not going to get it right. If you look back on a situation, or you're having a conversation with someone's loved one, and you can say we did what we could, rather than if only we had it. Gee, she's a different
big secret. Very, very different.
So I think that's it. So
imagine having to talk to the family of the person who's lost their life on your farm, and being able to say, actually, we asked them to take unnecessary risks, and that's why they've died. That would be horrendous.
But let's simplify this. He did tell me he was worried about his tyres, and I told him, what do you think we're made of money?
Yeah.
And do you know why I use that comment like that?
Because it happens all the time.
Stick on the ground. So someone's come to you and said, I'm worried about something. And you go and you belittle their concern, and there's a fatality. Absolutely, we've got a negligence, and I'm going to go as far as malicious negligence, but also, geez, that's a hard conversation to have with someone's loved one. Where you knew they were worried. Hey, Josh, I don't really feel comfortable doing this, mate. We've got a crop to get off, mate. I've shown you 10 times. Get up it.
Yeah.
Okay. And if I hear that my 16-year-old son, he's a ripper too. If he ends up, can he come down to work for you? He probably would. If I hear that he came to you, one of the other team members said, he went to Josh a few times back and kept saying he was worried, and now he's not here.
Yeah.
Do you want to talk legislation?
Yeah, let's go. Yeah, and rightly so. Yeah.
So that's why when we talk about worrying about the legislation does have a place. It's our role as boots on the ground, as people to, and I'm going to say interpret it in a way that we can parallel a profitable, productive family business that is everything that we want it to be without the cost of someone's loved one. And it's not about, Beck, Fing will put stuff in place that you won't jump through. Find one of my clients that says that, oh, she just put all this crazy stuff in and no one follows it. And that's why, back to the comment, I empower teams like Steph. When we work together, say through any program, I like building your capacity, because then when I bump out, I know that I've got confidence that it's going to live and breathe in your business, rather than me saying, here's your folder, see these? Pop it up there and you'll tick the box. I'll take your money.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what it'll do.
I'm going to say that is an amazing spot for us to end. However, I promised the listeners.
Okay,
I promised the listeners I will that. But you, Beck, you are restricted to like 3-word answers, okay? This has to be very tight. Okay, and I'm going to summarize some of these questions. Is it just not practical to create – oh, no, sorry. This guy says it's just not practical to create SOPs and do risk assessments on every piece of machinery. But if something were to happen to one of us, would we be covered by our insurances?
Not a 3-word answer.
Try really hard. We have no time.
So,
in
great
short,
question. Insurance does not cover negligence.
Great.
But why are you doing SOPs for every piece of machinery and every exercise? Do it for high-risk stuff.
Okay, great. So do it for high risk. Love that. Okay. Another question I will let through. I think you've already spoken about family and all of that.
Yes.
But what about if you have a contractor on, do you let them operate under their safety standards or your safety standards? I like that question.
To make it more than 3 words, thank you, Steph. Depends. What are their safety standards? If you've employed a professional contractor, happy days. If their standards are below yours, I'd lift them to yours.
Great. Okay, and no, that's it. We're going to call it there.
Cool.
Okay, thank you so much, Beck. It has been an
so
absolutely
good.
dynamic conversation. Cannot wait to see all of the chat that is going to come from listening to this. It's going to be massive. So thank you for your time. We really appreciate it. And just quickly, actually, what I think we'll do is if people want to come and see the 2 programs that you've got the one that's happening next week or the week after, the boot camp.
19th of May, which is our kickstart.
Okay, great.
And 2 hours, $200, and you'll go away with a plan.
And for anyone who uses the Steph and Josh code, you actually get $50 off. So you're basically making money. Everyone should be doing this.
Yes.
And your bigger one, though, which is we are definitely coming to, just tell us what date that is.
Well, not dated at the moment. It'll be subject to expression of interest. We only take half a dozen businesses, blah, blah, blah. It's a ripper. But drop me an email, send me Carrier Pridgeon, and I'll make sure you're included in the next cohort of that.
Beautiful.
Great.
Thank you so much, Beck.
That was great. Fantastic conversation.
Thanks, guys.